Good evening. I think we can make a start. I'd like to welcome all of you to our course planning evening, and I'd also like to welcome everybody who's watching us somewhere out there. I think I'll start with introductions to let you know the other people who are here. Up in the back, we have Sam Johnson, our Director of Learning, and Dr. Phil Webster, Head of Grade 10. Down in the front, we've got Stefan Tweedle, Head of Grade 11, Christine Wessler, Head of University Counseling, Gary Kern, our Principal, and Vern Beckett, one of our University Counselors. So my goal tonight is to go over with you, and Christine will add a portion in the middle, information that we've already given to your sons. I think most people know, I emailed a while ago that all of the documentation that I'll mention in here in this presentation is posted to the parent portal, which is why we don't have you lining up to pick up hand-ups or anything like that. So you can log on to the parent portal and get all the information that I'll mention here. Earlier this week, and even maybe at the end of last week, we put up on the parent portal so you could see what your sons have decided they would probably like to do as they move into grade 11 or grade 12. So the way the sequencing all works is that we do pre-selection with your sons. We've given that to you electronically. We'll give you some of the, well, basically all of the same information. And I think it's important for you to realize that we've set this up so that it's the opposite of a deadline. The first time you can hand in course choices for next year is on April 21st. So we're trying to set this up so your sons get information, you get information, then you have time to discuss with your sons, to discuss with various people at the school, university counseling, for example, heads of grade, so that you make the correct decision, so you don't feel that you need to sign up for courses right away because otherwise you won't get them. And in that manner, I hope that we'll be able to have everything in the best possible state when we get to September 2016. So here we go. If you've seen my PowerPoints before, you know what this slide's all about, but I'll bounce through it anyhow. We've got 4 things we have to worry about. The first thing we need to worry about is Ministry of Education graduation requirements. St. George's is a university prep school, really, and it's very hard, actually, not to graduate from a high school in BC, and that's not meant to be a joke or anything. It's just the way the things are set up and the way the way things are set up, it's difficult not to graduate. It's very difficult not to graduate from a high school when you're at St. George's, because we have some things that are compulsory for our students that aren't necessarily compulsory for all the students in the province. And that's number 2, which is St. George's requirements. This is an increasing level of difficulty and importance. As a university prep school, St. George's requires students to do certain courses that wouldn't be required courses in other regular high schools, because we assume that all of our students at some time are probably going to go to university. So we have required courses that ensure that all of our students are in a university track graduation program. Things that your son and you need to look out for are university requirements, general entrance requirements for different universities, because there's differences between the universities, and also program-specific requirements. Number 4 is going to come at the end of the slide, but if you've seen my stuff before, you know what number 4 is. It's actually the most important one, but we'll save it to the end. I thought I'd start with some changes for 2016, 2017, and actually these changes are really recent. Like yesterday, some of them. So your sons don't know about these changes. So you'll know more than your sons after tonight. In grade 12, up until including the current year, we've had a half-year course called Planning Transitions 12, and we use that to cover off learning outcomes from Planning 10, and we used it to help students meet their graduation transitions, graduation requirement. We're changing how we deal with students in grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12. So we're going to meet all of these requirements in a different manner in the coming year, and we're still working out the final details of that, so I can't tell you exactly what we're going to do. But it does mean that grade 12 students no longer need to choose a compulsory half-year course that we called Planning Transitions 12. We've decided that we'd like to try to reduce the academic load or the workload for some grade 11 students. So we've decided that we'll allow some grade 11 students to actually have a spare. We're starting out quite slowly in this process as we try to figure out just exactly what it's going to look like. But if students are enrolled in at least one non-academic course, they can sign up for a spare, which would have them probably with a course load of 6 academic courses, 1 non-academic course, and a spare. That's in the documentation that's on the parent portal. We also want to make sure that we're able to counsel grade 11s as carefully as possible. So sometimes grade 11s get really enthusiastic about going to university, and they get really enthusiastic about trying to have the most rigorous course load. And while the most rigorous course load is the correct course load for some students, it's not the correct course load for all students. So if there are students moving into grade 11 who want to take 8 academic courses, that would be their 4 courses plus 4 academic electives, they're actually going to have to discuss with our counseling department and our university counseling department and have someone sign off on that course choice. Details of this is still to come. I've got a form that I'm just working on right now that we'll put on the parent portal, I would say next week, early next week. We've restructured our Physics AP 1 course, so there's some changes in this year's course description booklet from what was in last year's course description booklet, and we're calling it Physics Honors. We have Creative Writing 11, which is a course that's available to grade 11 students. It'll meet the Fine Arts graduation requirement. Last year, we started something with respect to online courses and actually summer school courses as well. It's really interesting. UBC now says that if a student wants to apply and use an online course for part of his or her admissions average, that student needs to tell the university just why he or she did that course online rather than in a classroom. We actually foreshadowed UBC because last summer we started to say that we want our transcripts to show university admissible courses that were done in St. George's. So if a student does an online grade 12 course or a summer school grade 12 course, we don't put that course on the student's transcript. I'll bounce through fairly quickly some double credit possibilities, because another thing that makes it more difficult not to graduate at St. George's, there's lots of courses where students pick up credit for 2 courses, so they get 8 credits rather than 4. So grade 11 students who take Lit 12 get credit for Lit 12 and English 11. Grade 12 students who take any one of those 3 grade 12 courses, English AP, Writing 12, or Lit 12, also get credit for English 12 out of those courses. So if a student is interested in Writing 12 and realizes that he needs English 11 in order to graduate, he doesn't have to take 2 different courses. Students who take Euro History AP can choose to get credit for History 12 out of that course. I would say all students in Chem AP get credit for Chem 12 out of Chem AP. Those would have been students, if your son's in grade 11, if he's in Chem 11 honors, he would ordinarily go into Chem AP and get credit for Chem 12 out of that course as well, giving him credit for Chem 11, Chem AP, and Chem 12 out of 2 courses over 2 years. EnviroScience, Sustainable Resources 12, students in EnviroScience can choose to take credit for Sustainable Resources 12. I would say about 50% of the students in EnviroScience make that choice. For students who are currently moving into grade 12, they'll be moving directly into Physics AP 2, and they'll get a Physics 12 credit out of that course as well. It'll be a little bit different for students who are going into a grade 11 next year because we've restructured our Physics AP 1, Physics AP 2, Physics 11, Physics 12 course offerings. But we'll figure that out for students going into a grade 11 when we get to this point next year. We have a plan, it's just there's no point going into it right now. The College Board has 2 econ courses. One's called Econ Macro, one's called Econ Micro. They both say that these are 1-semester college courses, meaning we could actually offer them as a full year. We offer them in 1 year, so we do micro followed by macro. Students going into grade 12 can choose to do the micro part and not continue with the macro part. Grade 11 students who are doing Econ AP really need to stay the full year because we don't have half-year courses for grade 11s. We also have some accelerated streams. I've popped up here so you can see where your sons are perhaps coming from and where they may be going. These go basically vertically. So for example, in math, we have a regular math stream where students in grade 10 get credit for what I'll call Math 10, but what the ministry calls Foundations of Math and Pre-Calculus 10. Our stronger math students in grade 11 are taking Pre-Calc 11, so they did Math 10 last year, and you can see where they'll move down to as they progress into grade 11. We have some students, some of our stronger students, who choose in grade 11 to do AP Calc, or they can do Stats AP. Those would be our strongest math students. They need permission to do that. There's usually about 6 or 7 or 8 of them a year who do that. The students who go that route often are the students who decide to do Calculus 3 at UBC in their grade 12 year, so we usually have 7 or 8 students who choose to do that. But again, that pathway there is not the pathway for everyone. These are the grade 12 math courses. You can think about this column it came out of on the previous slide. And in the package of materials that's on the parent portal, I've got all of this on one piece of paper. I just couldn't fit it all onto one PowerPoint slide. It's kind of interesting, the comment under grade 12, you actually don't need Math 12 in order to graduate. In reality, almost all students at St. George's do take Math 12, but it's not compulsory for graduation, and it's possible that for some students, maybe grade 12 of their high school career is not the correct time to do Math 12. Maybe they'll do Math 12 in university at some time, but if your son isn't really enthusiastic about doing Math 12, and if his post-secondary plans don't have a math component as a prerequisite, he actually doesn't have to do it. So I know a lot of students, they think that Math 12 is a graduation requirement. It's not. I'm calling it Math 12, but the ministry's official name is Pre-Calc 12. I popped up an English-French flowchart again so you can see how things go. There's a couple of streams in English 10, but nobody gets accelerated credit in English 10, and all students in grade 10 write the English 10 provincial exam in June. So I would guess that children of about half the people here will be writing the English 10 provincial exam in June. French has different streams based on different language ability. When we get into grade 11, some students in the English 11 honors classes can get credit for English 12 ahead of time and write the English 12 provincial exam as a grade 11 student. Some people in French 12, in French 11 get accelerated credit for French 12 as well. In grade 12, the only compulsory course that we have now is an English 12 course. Grade 12 language course is an elective. You can see all the options up there, and you can think back to the double credit slide I showed you before. What's interesting is that in the current year, and I assume going forward, our grade 12 students, but not our grade 11 students, our grade 12 students who are doing English 12 will be writing their English 12 provincial exam in May. We've decided that by the time grade 12s get through graduation and to the end of June, writing their English 12 provincial exam is probably not the highest thing on their priority list. However, unfortunately, the English 12 provincial exam counts for 40% of their course final mark. And over the past couple of years, we've had 1 or 2 students each year who have managed to get themselves unadmitted from the university of their choice based on their English 12 provincial exam mark, which then usually ends up with Ms. Wessler and myself having phone conversations with me on a hillside in France and Ms. Wessler in a supermarket parking lot in Vancouver trying to figure out how we're going to get these students into university. So we decided to put do the May writing, and then if a student has difficulty, he can still do the June writing, and it's all good, and we figure it's in the best interests of the students. I'll bounce pretty quickly through some of this since it's in all the documentation. Remember, graduation is a combination of required courses and total number of credits, and a full year course is worth 4 credits, but you can't just take 80 credits, which is the magic number from any type of courses. You have to have specific courses as well. I think it's not a good use of my time to read through all of this. There's brochures you can get, and it's in your package anyhow. I wanted to bounce this one up to show you that students at St. George's really don't need to worry too much about graduation, because all of the courses that we make the students take help them graduate. So the ministry requirement is 3 language arts courses. Well, everybody at St. George's takes English 10, English 11, and an English course is grade 12. Socials 10 and 11 are required courses. Math 10 and 11 are required courses. Science 10 is required. PE is required. St. George's requires students to take a second language 10 and 11 course. That's not a graduation requirement. However, a second language 11 is a UBC general entrance requirement. U.S. universities like to see language study. So we're covering a lot of bases by making students do these courses as we think about our clientele here and preparation that we're working with them for their post-secondary careers. If your son's going into grade 11, I phrased it often as 4 electives, seeing the 4 courses where department heads place students in classes as their core courses. A Science 11 is a graduation requirement. So one of your son's electives going into grade 11 must be a Science 11 course. Lots of option for Science 11 courses. Maybe a quick point about Earth Science 11. I would see Earth Science 11 as a course for students who are actually not very good at science and are probably not planning on doing a science in their grade 12 year. So it's less mainstream than the other science courses that are up there. A really unusual combination of courses, in my opinion, would be Earth Science 11 plus another science course in grade 11. Because since Earth Science is for students who are actually not all that strong in science, it would be unusual for those students to take a second science as one of their electives in grade 11. And all students have to take 1 fine arts course sometime between grade 10, 11, and 12. And there's information in your package that tells you which are fine arts courses. Planning 10, which all students do in grade 10 on a pull-out basis from PE, is a graduation requirement. We don't meet all the learning outcomes for Planning 10 in grade 10. We'll finish them off in grade 11 as we do some interesting university counseling pieces in grade 11, and in grade 12 as we work through the alternate delivery of the Planning Transitions course that we used to have up to this year in grade 12. Graduation Transitions is a requirement, it's not a course. Up to this year, we've been having students do it by way of a half-year course. We'll deliver it in an alternate way next year. Just trying to follow a sequence of how things go. If your sons are currently in grade 10, they take 8 courses. 2 of them are electives. In grade 11, students have 4 core courses, generally 4 electives, but as I mentioned right at the start in changes, some grade 11s will have a spare next year, so their overall course load would be 7 courses. In grade 12, students make up their entire timetable. So in grade 11, department heads place students in 4 of their 7 or 8 courses. Grade 12 students make up their entire timetable. Basically, all courses are electives, except for the fact that all students need to take an English course in grade 12. So even if a student finished English 12 in grade 11, and that meets the graduation requirement, we feel strongly that continued study in English is really important, and so all students have to take an English course in grade 12, even students who have completed English 12 as grade 11s. Most of the students who completed English 12 as grade 11s would move on to English AP in grade 12, but it's not the only possibility. I'm going to bounce pretty quickly through a list of different courses that we have. So this talks about the provincial exams that are up there. Often when we talk about courses, we talk about university admissible courses. By university admissible courses, we mean academic courses number 12, and that includes AP courses for most but not every university. For some of these things where we talk about university entrance requirements, there's a lot of variation, and I think part of your task and your son's task as they look to what universities they might be interested in, and in working with our university counseling department, is to see what specific requirements apply at each university. Most universities require 4 university admissible courses for entrance. UBC requires 4 university admissible courses divided into English 12 plus 3 others. And there might be other specific ones depending on whether a student is going to science, business, etc. We recommend that all students over the course of their grade 11 and 12 year take a minimum of 5 university admissible courses. That allows the student a little bit of play so that if he doesn't do as well in one of his top 5 university admissible courses, he actually doesn't have to count it and he still has 4 left. If he only has 4 and he doesn't do as well in that course as he would like, he still has to count it. This is one group of university admissible courses, but maybe I'm showing my age by grouping it in this way because these are courses that previously had a provincial exam but no longer do, but they really form the core of the ministry's grade 12 courses. So that's one group of ministry of university admissible courses that your son may choose from. Some of these are actually quite available or quite accessible for grade 11 students. Some of them are more for grade 12 students. All of that information is in the course description booklet. This is a list of our AP courses, lots of AP courses at St. George's. As a general rule, most of our humanities AP courses are available to grade 11 and grade 12 students. Most, but not all, of our math science AP courses are more available to grade 12 students, with them meeting some prerequisite requirements for those courses as grade 11s. There's another group of courses that I've combined 2 here. There's what used to be called locally developed courses, and there's other ministry authorized courses that weren't part of the provincial exam group of courses back in the old provincial exam days. I think that's what's interesting for you on this slide is to note what's accepted by UBC, what's not accepted by UBC. So Calc 12 is accepted by UBC. Comp Civ 12 over there is accepted by UVic but not by UBC. Econ 12 accepted by UBC. Law 12 is accepted by UBC. So I think it's interesting to keep all of these courses in mind as well, in addition to geography, geology, all the, I call them traditional grade 12 academic courses. This is just to show you the whole range of fine arts courses that we have. Once again, all of this stuff is on the document that's posted to the website. Now we'll go away from the text-heavy slides and we'll go on to slides with pictures.
Thank you, Bill. I don't think he's ever made a comment, or we've ever had a presentation where he hasn't commented on my slides. Just like to mix it up. It's either colorful slides or a song and dance from me. I don't think you want to see that. Anyhow, I have about 2 hours worth of material, so I would suggest you get really comfortable. Yeah, you laughed. All right. I'm going to look at course planning through a university or post-secondary, sorry, let me start again. We're going to look at course planning through a post-secondary planning lens. Just so you know, we have gone through all of this with the students already. It is a lot to remember, and I do see some of you taking a lot of notes, which I appreciate. But please know that if you go home and download those handouts and then meet with the university counselor, it'll all work out. So just wanted to touch on how university counseling unfolds, and I've mentioned this in many presentations in the past. In grade 10, so if you're a parent of a current grade 10, university counseling folds primarily through a course called Planning 10, taught by Mr. Lee, who was a university counselor and is very well versed in university admissions. In grade 11, we've been delivering a university counseling curriculum through advisor group, pull-out sessions, speakers, and also these mandatory university visits that we've asked all grade 11s to do this year. So every grade 11 was asked to do 5 visits to look at different schools that he might be interested in, and then to do a reflection exercise afterwards. So if you're a parent of a current grade 10, we will continue with that, and we will be asking your sons to do that. It sounds kind of counterproductive to force that, but it was probably the best way for us to actually get students engaged, and they've actually been really grateful that they've had to do it, and it becomes a wonderful launching pad for us to have some conversations, because they start to get really excited when they meet with the reps and hear about different programs and start thinking about the future without forsaking the present too much. After this presentation, I'm going to be sending out the grade 11 permanent university counselor assignments. This is a person who will be working with your son from now until graduation, and it doesn't actually end after they get in. Right now, we are so busy with grade 12 still, even though they're in, because now they're booking appointments to find out to talk to us about which university they should actually pick. So there's constant uncertainty and constant grappling with decisions the entire year, but it's at least a lot more fun once you have a lot of schools that you've been accepted at. And if you want to know who your university counselor is, you could ask me after this presentation, which would mean, once again, you know more than your sons, because we've been doing a lot of tweaking and changing, as you will get, as you're getting a sense of probably as the evening unfolds. And then the bulk of our work comes in grade 12, or spring of grade 11 and grade 12, where we really individualize the program and talk to you, parents and students, about their post-secondary aspirations, and make sure that their courses align with their strengths and dreams, and obviously their goals as well. So I'm just going to go through a few things here. And again, the students have already seen this, but when we met with the grade 11s, and also when Mr. Lee talked to the grade 10s, some of the key things that he hits upon is students have to start thinking about the selectivity of the school that they want to attend. Clearly from grade 10 to 11, things change as they look around or as they do their research, and it's not too late at that point, going from grade 10 to grade 11, to start planning for the future and for planning for certain kinds of schools. When students in grade 10 do their course planning, we suggest, and when we work with them, that they actually plan for 2 years right away. That way we can see how the pieces fit together and make sure that nothing is left out that would actually close a door. We really work hard to keep as many doors open as possible. I think this is particularly important for students who don't really know what they want to do, which is the majority, that we counsel them in a way that we can still, while being mindful of their strengths, keep those doors open for them, and it's actually not that difficult to do. It's also challenging with 10s going to 11, and sometimes 11s going into 12s, that we ask them to take a really honest look at what their abilities are. And we see in grade 8, 9, and 10 that students often choose electives to be with their friends, coupled with obviously what they're interested in. But as they move into a more individualized graduation program in grade 11 and 12, we ask them to really look at what it is that makes them unique, where they can imagine their lives after St. George's, and how they can best plan for themselves. So this could be planning for Canadian University, could be planning for UK University, obviously an American university, and it could be also planning for a gap year, which is also a very valid path. With the gap year, we still encourage students to apply to universities and then to defer their acceptance so that they are assured a spot when they come back from their gap year, and it's also a great comfort to parents. And again, as I've said in many presentations, it's really important that you are part of this process, and course planning is a key piece of this. We counsel the students to really do their research, so not just the visits, but to talk to Old Boys. We connect them with Old Boys primarily through Facebook and email, and that's been a huge plus for the students, because then they hear directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what worked for that student, what courses he took at St. George's, what maybe helped him get in, combined with the expertise of the university counselors and all the individuals in the school here at St. George's Helping Your Son. I'm making another plug for our Facebook page. There's a lot of excellent reading. We keep it really current. And we encourage you as parents to, and the students, of course, to be on that. Again, it's just a matter of getting the students to be as informed as possible, as early as possible, so that they can make really well thought out choices in terms of their course planning and preparing well for the post-secondary process. So I think I've sort of mentioned this already. Threshold marks are important to be aware of. And sometimes that becomes a very difficult conversation with students who have very high aspirations, but whose marks may not actually make him admissible at that point. So if you're on Naviance, you can look at things called scattergrams, which show some of the marks that are needed to get into programs. Naviance also houses every single website, the hyperlinks to every single university in the world. But threshold marks are really important. Every university's webpage lists the mark range that a student needs to get into a program. So for example, McGill right now lists their business admissions cut point as 94.3, but it's as high, it could be as high as 97. So we're seeing even students with an average of 94.3 meeting that cut point, not getting in. So you have to be aware of cut points. They drive the conversation a lot of the time, and it becomes a bit of a reality check. I know, it's unbelievable. I'm going to go through some of the most popular faculties that our students apply to and just give you an idea of what a timetable for a grade 11 or grade 12 could look like in the most general and broad terms. So liberal arts, also called humanities or social sciences, is for students who obviously want a liberal arts education or aren't quite sure yet what they want to major in. So on the left-hand, yes, your left-hand side, you'll see there what a timetable would look like. It mirrors or it reflects the core courses that are necessary for graduation, and it also lists the possibility of what's called an elective course. An elective course is a course that the student elects to take. Out of the 8-block timetable, there are 5 mandatory classes that a student has to take, leaving 3 blocks in grade 11 for students to choose. I really, at this point, just want to take a moment to underscore how important we think electives are. So there's 2 ways of looking at electives. Electives as courses the students elect to take, but also as electives as courses that make the students very interesting, which are typically fine arts courses. In our offices, we counsel students who have been on a path where they've really enjoyed electives such as journalism, ceramics, music, theater, whatever it might be, to continue right until the end of grade 12 with those courses. These are the courses that let students look at the world differently. They make the students interesting. They give us lots to tell the students about, to tell the universities about. They often connect those dots with things they're doing outside of school as well. So we find students doing journalism might be working on the Opus, doing writing. Students in music might be in the jazz ensemble, and so on. So it's really important, and please don't be under the impression that if your son wants to go to an Ivy League, that he should be filling up his timetable with 8 academic subjects. That does work for some students, and those courses that they take are good for them. But it's really, I just really want to make a plug, because we see kids getting into the most selective schools in the world that have pursued this passion right up until the end of graduation. So in grade 12, as Mr. Collins already said, every student has to take some sort of an English course, whether it's English 12 or writing or literature or English AP. I've put up here that a second language is recommended. UBC expects that you take a language 12 if you'd like to graduate with an arts degree. And then again, it's at least 2 university admissible courses. We have seen that students who only have 4 university admissible courses, so English 12 plus 3, can put themselves in a very precarious situation if one of those marks, as Mr. Collins mentioned, isn't a strong mark. Unfortunately, that student will need to count that mark into his admissions average, because universities are looking across Canada for a minimum of 4 grade 12 academic admissible courses. So again, we want to play it safe and make sure that students have a good range, keep balance, and that we don't burn them out. This is why sometimes in grade 11 we'll see students taking a grade 12 course already to have 1 or maybe even 2 under his belt already. And that can be a very good move. It takes some of the pressure off in grade 12, as long as it's not at the expense of something that he really enjoys in the fine arts, for example. Alrighty, I'm just going to pause for My water. Commerce and business is probably the most popular faculty for our St. George's boys. When I did the tally at the end of the year, it was commerce, engineering, science, and health science, and actually the most popular faculty was undecided. So it's okay not to know. Again, in grade 11, it looks the same with the option of a spare if a student is taking a non-academic class. And then in grade 12, I really want to stress that for a business or commerce program, every student needs to take pre-calculus 12. UBC will not allow you to replace pre-calculus 12 with calculus. So for example, your son might get a stronger calculus 12 mark than a pre-calculus 12 mark. He cannot exchange those marks. UBC is very particular. When they ask for pre-calculus 12, it must be pre-calculus 12. Some Ontario universities are also looking for calculus. Those would primarily be Waterloo, York, and the University of Toronto. So again, if you want to keep those doors open, and we've told the students this, you need to be sure to be taking pre-calculus 12 and calculus 12. Grade 12 is a wonderful year, so those of you, not that grade 11 isn't, grade 12 is especially wonderful because the students have the possibility of having 2 full spares, which is ideal for students that need that extra time, not to improve their Smash Bros score, but to actually work on university applications and homework. Science. All right. So again, science, if you take a look on your left, to be admissible in BC to a science program, you will need chemistry and physics. So that's UVic, UBC, and SFU. For UBC, if you want to be admissible to science, you actually in grade 12 only need 1 Science 12 course. But for students who are on a science path, we encourage them to take a minimum of 2 grade 12 sciences. So that would be biology, physics, or chemistry. Because what that means is that it keeps the door open for the Ontario universities that require 2. It also keeps the door open for sciences at UVic and SFU, which also require 2 Science 12. So sometimes a student will say, well, ma'am, I just want to apply to UBC, which is a fair statement. Nevertheless, we say if you really are on a science path and enjoy sciences, please, you need to take 2 Science 12s. As far as the rest of Canada or even any other university, yours 2 Science 12s could be, for example, physics and biology, and you don't have to have chemistry and physics like you do for the BC universities. So you can see that there's a lot of things to think about in planning out your son's timetable. You'll have all the literature in your packages, but it would be good, most especially grade 11 parents, to meet with a university counselor and just go over all of this. We do vet all the timetables, so if we see anything missing, of course we will alter that as soon as possible. Engineering is much more narrow. So for engineering to be admissible in Canada, and really for the US, you need chemistry 12 and physics 12. To take chemistry 12 and physics 12, you need chemistry 11 or 11 honors, and physics 11 or physics 11 honors. And then you need pre-calculus 12 in English. So there's your 4 right away for a university that requires 4 subjects. However, if it's a university like University of Toronto or Waterloo, where many of our students aspire to, they will also need calculus 12. So you can start to see how a timetable in grade 12 could potentially be chemistry 12, physics 12, English 12, pre-calc 12, calculus 12, that's already 5, and maybe a couple spares and something fun, maybe music, and that's your timetable. So a student on an engineering path has less flexibility in his timetable than a student on a liberal arts path. So just more things to think about. Fine arts. We have seen a huge surge in the number of students applying to architecture, which is super exciting. I cannot stress enough how important it is for students to take drawing and painting, or whether it's a 3D art course or media arts, ceramics, at St. George's School. So even if your son is doing incredible work, which I'm sure he is in a studio, please make sure that he's also doing fine arts in at St. George's. We have seen that even just in the results from our students. If your son wants to be a Rig Scholar, he needs to be doing fine arts at St. George's, but all of our amazing results. Some of those students started off without a grade 12 fine arts course, and we counsel them to add those courses, and I think it made a huge difference. So again, we have an amazing fine arts at the school. They're so fortunate here. When the university reps come, they can't believe what we offer to the boys. They know our fine arts, they know our music, theater, visual arts. And so please, if your son has not been doing fine arts at St. George's, but he wants to study architecture or drawing and painting or furniture design, it's really vital that he takes a course at our school. Because then again, if your son is looking to study fine arts at university, the university will be asking for a letter of reference from a fine arts teacher, and that cannot be somebody out in the community. It needs to be a fine arts teacher at St. George's. And that's the person that the university admissions people are going to rely on to give an honest portrayal of how your son is as an artist and what his potential is, most particularly his potential. So it's exciting to see students pursuing the fine arts, to be going into music and drama. I think it's wonderful. So again, just to reiterate, for BC admissions, you need, for all the universities I've mentioned, 4 grade 12 courses. You must have an English 12. Even if you've done writing 12, that's why we give the credit for English 12. You must have English 12, and then you can see on this slide the rest that I've already covered, covered. Some footnotes. Okay, so I've mentioned this already, the importance of Chemistry 11 and Physics 11. And again, taken at St. George's School would be the best place to do these courses, because if you do this course in summer school or online, you're not getting the lab experience, and the conversation that's generated in a classroom milieu is really something that can't be recreated in an online course. And even in summer school, it's too condensed. Just so that you know, UBC does consider Geology 12 a science, and UVic is even more broad and considers Geography 12 a science, so which makes some of our students very happy if they want to go to UVic. When you, as a parent, are looking to see whether a course at St. George's is university admissible, every university lists its courses. So if you just in that website look for grade 12 admissible courses, the list should come up. And it does vary university to university. I've mentioned all this already. Students that are on planning to stay in Canada do not have to take APs. Hopefully, if they're taking APs, they're taking it because they love the course, they want to be challenged, and not because they're trying to stock up on rigor. I mean, the real reason to take APs at any time is really just for the challenge and the joy of learning. Repeated courses. We get a lot of questions, particularly around math, about repeating Math 12. If you repeat Math 12, McGill and the University of Toronto will average those 2 marks out. So if your son, I had a student recently who's sitting at around an 87 in Math 12 and wants to repeat it, I would say that's not a good decision, even with an extra 4%. I mean, how much better is he necessarily going to do? We don't know that. And averaging it out is not often that much to the student's benefit. He could be taking something else in that block. University of Toronto goes so far as to say if we see a repeated course, it actually factors into how we view the entire application. So again, repeated courses, if your son needs to redo a course and he knows he's, for example, going to go to UBC, which doesn't penalize students for repeated courses, then by all means go through with that. But again, speak to the university counselors or check the university web pages. UBC does reserve the right, if a student earns a 4 or 5 in grade 11 on an AP exam, to convert that into a mark, but they don't say that they necessarily will. They just say we will reserve the right. So if there was maybe an outlier, in the way a student was presenting on a transcript, they might look at those AP marks, and that could push a student over that bubble and actually make him admissible. There's a lot of students obviously pursuing health sciences. I'm just going to touch on this very, very quickly, but this has been one of our greatest challenges because McMaster Health Sciences, which is probably the most coveted health science, one of the most ambitious health science programs that our students apply to, and obviously it's very, very competitive to get in. You need 90%, but your son needs to take one non-science, non-math, non-technology course. And so we have had, from time to time, students that haven't had that and have quickly had to alter their timetables. For example, McMaster does not consider psychology AP to be a non-math, non-science course. They actually consider it a science course, which came as a bit of a shock. So if your son is doing health sciences, I think it's actually a really good thing that the university is still looking for him to be taking a humanities or social science, other than psychology, course. So just something to keep in the back of your minds. I think I've touched on all this already, so I'm just going to go here, and I've touched on McGill's Day Sotel management program as well. But again, this having 5 or 6 university admissible courses speaks to making that student possibly more competitive for a school like McGill, which many of our students apply to every year. And in terms of APs, just so that you know, and this has been sent out to the student already, if a student does write an AP, in grade 11 or grade 12, he may not enroll in that course at McGill. So if your son writes an chemistry AP in his grade 12 year, he has to actually go into second year chemistry at McGill, or he can repeat first year chemistry, like in the sense he can audit the course and not get a grade for it. So with some faculties like engineering and science, we counsel the students not to write those APs so that they can actually join that first year class and get that foundation right away from day one at McGill. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind right now. We've talked a lot about this at other presentations, but just in terms of course planning, obviously, if you're looking at an American school, you want to look at breadth of courses, which speaks to my plug for the fine arts, since your son's staying with that. Universities like to see right brain, left brain thinking, and they also like to see how what you're doing in the classroom connects to learning outside of the classroom as well. So I think I've covered a lot of this in the past. In terms of self-studied APs, we're not super excited about them at St. George's. We offer 25 APs. We think we offer a wonderful range, and we would suggest that your sons take APs at St. George's. There is a myth that to get into a selective school, you need 9 to a dozen APs, and that does not spell out in the results. So for some students who maybe can't fit things on their timetable, or maybe who wanted to challenge a little earlier and couldn't put that on their timetable, there might be value in that. But again, we've asked the university reps, how do you feel about self-studied APs? And the majority of them say, we really just focus on what a student is doing at school. You can share that data with us. The student can send his score if he likes, and we will look at that. But number one is always what a student is doing at St. George's School. Because some APs, students can take the textbook and do a really good job of memorizing, but whether they have really synthesized or internalized their learning is debatable. So again, we just really encourage the boys to do their APs here at St. George's. UK schools, if your son is looking at UK, most particularly UK medicine, he actually may need, depending on the school, AP courses. So again, work with your university counselor, just to make sure that everything he needs is on his timetable. AP courses, though, for the schools that don't need them, if you apply it to a UK university and you have AP courses on your timetable, they kind of penalize you because they say, oh, well, you're taking APs, we're going to make the results on that AP a condition of your admission. So we have students right now that are accepted to UK universities who could potentially lose their offers if they don't score a 4 or 5 on their AP exams in May, and they won't actually know that until July. So what the UK system does is it allows you to pick your school, you have your conditional offer, and it gives you also an insurance offer. It's actually called an insurance offer, where you get to pick a second school that's your backup if you don't meet the conditions of your first offer. So, interesting. Finally, just to conclude, and thank you so much for being so patient, really this whole process is about the student. We hold the student at the center of all our decision-making, and we ask him to hold himself at the center of his decision-making. So that course planning really becomes about the big picture, the blueprint of his life, so to speak, how he's going to connect everything that he's done at St. George's to his life after he leaves us. So that ends my presentation. We will be around afterwards to answer any questions and to let you know if for grade 11 parents who your university counselor is. Thank you so much.
And now I have a few final points that I hope will bring it all together and give you a good feeling how everything sits. I'll bounce through fairly quickly the information that should be available to you on the parent portal. I don't know exactly where it lives on the parent portal. I'm sure that you can navigate the parent portal better than I can. So for all of the current grade 10s and grade 11s, we have a projected student course selection form that the student has filled out. Some of them look like this, some of them are mail merged out of Canvas, so there's two different formats. What we tried to do on these sheets, rather than just asking students, where do you want to go to university, what courses do you want to take, we asked the students to do self-reflection about strengths and interests, areas where they're not so strong. When we met with the students, we tried to counsel the students that what their friend is taking or planning to do in university and next year is not necessarily what you as your own personal self need to do. So we tried to help students think about the courses that they wanted to take before they actually could write down the courses. So I'm hoping this will provide some useful discussion between you and your children as you help them work on their courses for next year. So that's on the parent portal, and I think we've got a pretty close to 100% success rate this year. There'll be a few that aren't there as far as students who are away and never had a chance to make them up, but other than that, our success rate was really quite good this year. Also on the website, there's a booklet of course descriptions. So all of the courses that are available to students in grade 11 and grade 12 are in this booklet. It even has a live table of contents, so if you click on the page number of the table of contents, it will jump you to that page, and I was so happy I learned how to do that. On your left-hand side, you can see on the cover page, I put on 3 links to Ministry of Education materials. The links are live in the sense that I actually tested them and they actually work. One of them's to a Ministry of Education publication that's called the Grad Planner, which gives all information about graduation and courses, which gives the Ministry of Education's presentation of the material that we presented to you from a St. George's point of view this evening. There's another one that's called the Dogwood Planner, the diploma that you get from the Minister of Education at the end of grade 12 is called the Dogwood Diploma. Those two are meant to be used together. And the third link is just a link to the Ministry of Education website where they have information about provincial exams and where your son will make an account to get his provincial exam results. And you've probably already been to that website. I made a note to myself just sitting over there, and one thing that I wanted to mention to you is that as you go through the booklet of course descriptions, you'll see that some courses in there have prerequisites, and some courses in there have prerequisite marks that a student needs to get in the previous course in order to register for the course whose description is there. I hope you understand that by putting the prerequisites up there, we're not trying to throw roadblocks in your son's way, and we're not trying to stop your son from achieving his dreams. What we are trying to do is we're trying to guide your son into making correct decisions, and we're actually trying to prevent your son from hurting himself by signing up for courses that are not in his base interest based on our experience. So please read the prerequisites in that manner. And of course, we're always willing to discuss if it's close and it's your son's dream and he's certain that it will always work. But really, we're trying to guide your son into making correct decisions with prerequisites. It's not about roadblocks. I've got up, there's another PDF that's posted to the portal that gives you instructions for how to choose courses, and it gives you a lot of the information that we gave you tonight, and it talks about spares, electives. Once again, it mentions the importance of choosing courses that are appropriate for your son, thinking about his strengths and interests. So you're not meant to be able to read that. That's just so you can see something that's on the parent portal in a format that you can read. There's a course grid. Once again, you're not meant to read that one. The course grid shows all of the courses in grade 11 and grade 12 and the blocks in which they take place. So really your task becomes to take all of the information about your son, all of the course descriptions, this grid, and then put them together, if you're a grade 11 student, onto this piece of paper. So you take all of the courses and you choose those 4 electives. As we said before, under certain conditions, one of those can be a spare, and you don't need permission to take the spare if you meet the criteria, just write in spare. As I said before, grade 12s put together their entire timetable. So if we bounce back to this guy for grade 11s, you are choosing the 4 elective courses, one of which needs to be a science that your son will take in grade 11. Department heads place your sons in the other 4 courses. Grade 12 students make up their entire timetable. These grids are fillable PDF forms. So really you have a couple of choices with how you submit these to us. In the best case scenario, you'll type into the fillable PDF form. It will work perfectly. You'll save it as a PDF to your computer, and you'll email it to us as an attachment. And the email address is on all the other documentation. You could also print off the form, write on it, bring it in and drop it in at the registrar's office. That's okay too. Those are the 2 best possibilities. I know sometimes PDF forms has a thing that says, do you want to send this to an email recipient? It's not going to work. You're actually going to have to save it as a PDF, send it as an attachment. In the past, sometimes people have struggled a bit with these forms and taken a screenshot of them and emailed us a screenshot. Screenshots are really difficult for us to work with on our end. So if the PDF's not working for you, it's easiest just to print it and bring it in and drop it off. Sometimes Macs are a little bit tricky with the fillable form. So on the instructions, if you read down at the bottom, sometimes there's an instruction of what to do if you're on a Mac and it doesn't appear that the information is saving. Sometimes Macs do weird things where the information that you typed in is there, but it doesn't show. And it only shows if you click on one cell, but you can't see it in all the other cells. I'm surrounded by Mac users. I would tell them to get a PC, but they won't do it. They're just laughing about my... Okay. We have something set up where you need to get permission. And once again, asking for permission is not about to be annoying and say, why do I have to jump another hoop? We just want to make sure that your son has discussed his choices with the most appropriate people and that they're the most appropriate choices for him. So ordinarily, we don't want grade 11s to take 3 science courses in grade 11. For students who are really, really strong in science and really interested in science, well, then, of course, we'll let them do that, but we want them to see the department head of science and discuss that with the department head of science first of all. If you remember way back at the start, I mentioned that some of our top grade 12 students can take AP Calculus or AP Stats as grade 11 students. This is in addition to their Pre-Calc 12 course as well. So a student doing AP Calculus would be doing that in another block from his Pre-Calc 12 course as well. So these are the strongest math students, and really you need to get permission from Mr. Jones to do that. The way I see it is that if a student is strong enough to do calculus as a grade 11 student, in addition to his Pre-Calc 12 course, that student should be strong enough to do BC Calc, not AB Calc. If a student says, well, I think I can kind of do calculus, but I really don't want the challenge of BC Calc, he should wait until grade 12 and then perhaps do BC Calc, not do AB Calc as a grade 11 student. Because in the end, a student who does AB Calc in grade 11 kind of takes BC Calc off the table because it doesn't make a lot of sense to do AB Calc followed by BC Calc because you do half the same course again. So I really feel that students in grade 11 who think they should do a calculus course or have the ability to do a calculus course as a grade 11 should be doing BC Calc, otherwise wait till grade 12. And you can't do 3 sciences and BC Calc or Stats AP because that then gives you 4 math science courses. So you can do 2 sciences and a Calc or Stats course, or 3 sciences and not Calc or Stats. And that's all about making decisions and making the right choice. And we'll guide you, as I say, these rules are not meant to put roadblocks in front of you, but to guide you into what we think are the best decisions. Eight academic courses in grade 11. We want, as I mentioned earlier, we want students to ask permission to do those courses. I'm working on a form. I still have to clean up some details, and I'll post that to the parent portal as well. So I would say probably by Monday that should be available to you. It's okay because you've got until April 21st to work on decision making. So the time is there. We don't want you to rush decisions. As I said, if you meet our criteria, you can just write in a spare in one of those slots on the grade 11 course selection form. That's a long bit about summer school, but really what it says is if we want you to meet all of your graduations, we want your sons to meet all of his graduation requirements at St. George's. So we don't want students to go to summer school for things like Social Studies 11 because they want to get it out of the way and do something else. It's a graduation requirement. If you want to say that you've graduated from St. George's, then we want you to do your graduation requirements at St. George's. Of course, if you come from another school and you did them there, that's a different thing. This one basically says that if you want to do an AP course, an AP science course, then you need to do one of the prerequisites in the regular St. George's classroom. As Ms. Wesley was saying, summer school is kind of condensed. Online courses are even less lab-based, and we feel that you won't have the lab skills to be successful in an AP science course unless you do one of the prerequisites in the full year in our classroom. This is about course selections. I think I may have missed one slide. I forgot to put one, and I don't think I mentioned that we don't want students to do grade 12 university admissible courses in summer school or online. So last summer, maybe it was way back on my first slide, last summer we started saying that if a student does a university admissible course online, that's not in the St. George's classroom or in summer school, we don't think that sets up a level playing field with students who are doing those courses in our classroom, so we won't put those courses on the St. George's transcript. These are instructions about how to do the course selection, submit the course form, which I mentioned about as well. That's our email address there. Now we get to the piece that's supposed to tie it all together. And those are the three considerations. And then it was all throughout what I was saying and even more throughout what Ms. Wessler was saying, because we know that number 4 is your son, right? And you've got to think about his strengths, his abilities, his passions, because really your son is key to all of this. And that's what this whole evening has really been about. And that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Check the website if you haven't, check your parent portal if you haven't already checked it, and there'll be a couple of more things coming there over the next few days. As Ms. Wesley said, we'll be down here to answer some individual questions if you have them. Thank you very much.